and welcome to the Slow Paced Knitting Space. My name is Michelle Matthews, and this is my video channel where I talk about knitting and designing and I guess realistic ways I fit those into my day-to-day life. Welcome to any returning viewers and to new viewers. I thought I would say a little bit about me in case you're new, because it's been a while. I live in northern Alberta, Canada, with my husband and our 4 kids. I made show notes, but I didn't make a script, and the intro is the hardest, so I'm just gonna keep going and not take any more tries. So, my last video was in May, and in May I was talking about my socks that I designed, Max socks, and since then I have published them, and even somebody has bought my pattern. So, these are the Max socks. They are inspired by video game motifs that my cousin Max liked to play, and he passed away of cancer, so every purchase of this pattern will donate money to the Children's Stollery Hospital in Edmonton in his memory. And I've talked extensively about these socks in other videos. So, also in May, something I was really interested in was mending things. With 4 kids, you get a lot of holes in the knees. So I thought, hey, new hobby, right? So let's try this out. And so I'm gonna run some photos through of some of the mending I did in May and June. So this first one is my baby's pants. I did the knee, and then the first time she wore them, after I mended the knee, she blew out the other knee. So I fixed that one, and since then, these pants don't fit her anymore. She's totally outgrown them. Next is a pair of pants that have a pink lining, fleece or something, and so rather than patch them, I just sewed the lining to the outer denim so that it would look a little less ragamuffinish. The next one is my pants. I put some patches on the inner thigh, and I saw this neat tutorial about how to do a very discreet patch on the inner thigh, and so I did that one first, which is the patch you see where it's a blue circle, because I didn't take into account that wearing away at the pants would make them lighter, and so it really stands out. And so for the next patch, I just did it on the outside, and it's much more discreet. Next is my daughter Claire's pants. I patched these with a patch from a kit that I got for my birthday. My husband gave me a really nice mending kit that came with a book and some tools and threads and patches, and that's from a threaded needle, and that was really nice. The next pair of pants is my son Winston's pants. He loves his patch, and he has since worn throughout the other knee and needs another patch. And I think it has worn out a bit around the patch, so they could use a little bit more love. Last, I have these black pants, which, using a black patch on the black pants, it was much more discreet than my first attempt on my own pants. So, lots of mending, and I think the reason that I wasn't really interested in knitting in May and June is this concept that I heard about, and I agree. I think I reached my work in progress threshold level. Work in progress is often called WIPs, W-I-P. So reaching this level, I just had so many projects on the go that I was like too stressed out to make any more. I just didn't want to start anything new, although I wasn't super interested in starting or finishing any of the ones at the time, so I just didn't work on anything knitting wise. So I didn't knit very much in May, and then when June came around, I thought that it would be a good idea to start working through my WIPs to bring my WIP count down to a point where it wasn't stressing me out so much to have so many things on the go. So the first thing I took a look at was some socks I made for my friend who was graduating. I thought she was graduating last year, so I started these last year, and then I found out that she was actually going to take another year of school. So I thought I had another year to do them. So I put them down because I had other stuff I wanted to do, and it turned out she was done at like Christmas. She had basically been graduated for a while already, and so I finished them this June. So these socks are really, really overdue. The pattern is called Brago, and it's by Virginia Sattler Reimer, and it's named after Aragorn's horse in Lord of the Rings. And I thought this would be a great fit for my friend because she likes Lord of the Rings and she likes horses, and so that's just perfect, right? I knit this out of Farmer's Daughter Fibers Highline Bling, which has cashmere in it, but I honestly, I didn't really notice. It didn't seem any different than any other yarn, but maybe wearing it would feel different. And then next, in June, I had, at some point in the spring, I signed up to be in a Harry Potter swap with the Odd Ducks Swaps group on Ravelry. And so you have to send some things. You get a questionnaire, you fill it out, you get partnered up. And so then I was making some ankle socks for my swap partner, and she said she liked Hermione and she liked pink, so I made this pattern for her, which is called Hermione's Half-Blood Prince socks. And these socks are inspired by the hat that Hermione wears in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. There are a bunch of patterns on Ravelry to make the hat, and this one is socks using the same stitch pattern that's on the hat. And so I just thought that was really neat. And once upon a time, my auntie knit me that hat from the movie for me. And since then, somebody threw it in the dryer and it felted, and now it's this adorable little hat that fits my 4-year-old. But these socks are knit out of Sweet Georgia yarns in Tough Love sock, and I believe the colorway name is Candy Apple. And Hermione's Half-Blood Prince socks, which are designed by Tracy Hollis, is a free pattern, so anybody can scoop them up and knit them. And it's actually a rather enjoyable knit. The last pair of socks I have to show for June is actually kind of near and dear to my heart because I started these socks last year in 2020. And in June 2020, I kind of realized that between lockdown and postpartum of my 4th baby, I was having a really rough time. I was not really in a good place. I realized all my coping mechanisms and strategies were not healthy ones. And so something that I did was I cast on a new pair of socks to knit when I was stressed out, when I was just not doing all right, to have something very simple to focus on just for me that was kind of special. So I cast on Coffee Bean Socks by Esther Dweezer? Sorry, I don't know. But, so I cast them on to make ankle socks because I had a rather limited amount of this sparkly brown yarn that I got at garage sales. I think I got it from more than one garage sale, which is not too common, but it feels like cotton and it's very shiny. And so these coffee bean ankle socks, oh gross, have the stitch pattern that mimics the look of coffee beans. So I started that June 30th, 2020, and I finished them June 30th, 2021. And they're really nice. Cotton is nice for socks when you want your feet covered to be a little bit warm, but you don't want to get overheated. So I actually really like that. And I accidentally did one bean more on one of the socks, which I was concerned about because cotton isn't very stretchy, so I was afraid it would be super noticeable, and it was not. So I left it like that, and these are kind of a special love gift to me pair of socks. June was actually a big month for yarn acquisition for me. My aunt came up from Edmonton to visit my grandpa for a while, and she had ordered me some yarn there was this sock knitting competition, Super Sock World Championships, and I thought I was gonna be a cheerleader again for that, and she was in it, and she knit a lot of the socks for it, I think. I don't remember now. But they had, one of the people there involved was a yarn dyer, and she dyed up a special colorway inspired by the Super Sock World Championships. And so my aunt bought me some, and she actually had it mailed to my place because she knew she was going to be here. And the post office did not like that. They were like, you have to just get your own mail. So this is it. Invictus Yarns Inconquerable Soul BFL in the colorway, the limited edition colorway Octane. And it kind of looks like an oil slick, which is the point really, because that competition had high octane patterns and low octane patterns based on difficulty. And yeah, so this is really nice of her to get for me. That was really special. And while she was around, we went to Dawson Creek because there's a yarn store there called Faking Sanity, and I bought some things there. I bought some yarn, a little mini yarn to put in my swap for my swap partner, and I finally did it. I bought some yarn that matches my beloved coffee cup, more or less. So this is Peaceful Yarns, Bronze Sparkle in the colorway Herbal. And I'm going to make a sock pattern out of this yarn that will match the texture of my cup. When I do this, not sure. Probably the new year. Also, another thing I bought at Faking Sanity was some yarn that I will show later. And then in June, my daughter and I went to Edmonton for a doctor thing, and we stopped at several yarn stores. So the first one was Joe's Yarn Garden, and at Joe's Yarn Garden, my daughter sat playing on the tablet and saying hi to every single person who walked by, and she was so well behaved. It was really nice, and I spent a long time there. And I picked this yarn, Cascade Heritage Prints, and it shows you what it's going to look like knitted up, so that's really sweet. And I bought this because I've been looking for a long time for just the right self-striping yarn to make a pattern called hexagons, which is literally the socks are made out of little hexagons that are made together into the shape of a sock. And it really needs some kind of striping or something to make it shine, I think. And so I've tried to make it before. I've cast on at least twice, only to find out, oh, the stripes are too long, the stripes are too short, and it just wouldn't look very good. So I bought that, and I bought a different one that I'll show you later. And then we went to the Fiber Nook in Edmonton, and at the Fiber Nook, I was looking for yarn to make a sweater pattern called Humulus. And I spent a long time there deciding, just how luxurious was this sweater going to be. And I came up with this gray yarn with purple for the contrast colorwork. And this gray yarn is Gathering Yarns Alpaca DK, and it's 50% alpaca, 50% acrylic. It's really soft, and this one is Estelle Superwash Merino DK. So I have exactly how much the pattern says I'll need, and so hopefully between my gauge and between, they usually recommend a little bit more than you actually need, so hopefully I will not run out. So I'm excited about that. I wound this one up because I was going to do a gauge swatch, and I'm just more interested in the socks I'm knitting now. So the sweater is planned but not a priority right now. And then lastly, in June when we were in Edmonton, I met up with a local dyer there, and her company is called Numana Yarns. And this was kind of really neat, is that I had done a custom order request for a yellowish whitish yarn, and she dyed up a sample and said, how's this? And I said, oh, I don't know. And so she did a little different, and so I went there to pick them up. And so this is what the first one was. It's this really nice yellow and white variegated, but I kind of wanted just a little bit more yellows and white in there. So she dyed up this one, which has lots of like really bright yellow, some light creamy, and then the white. And so this yarn I'm going to use for a design that I'm working on in my mind that is still a bit of a long ways off. And this one is going to be something super sunshiny, but I don't know what. Lastly, I picked up from her, I think it was discounted, but it was the last one of this one called Pretentious Book Club. I just thought it was so pretty. So I don't know what I'm going to make with this one. I forgot to mention that during the summer, Faking Sanity and a number of other northern Alberta and northern BC yarn stores have this thing, and I forget what it's called completely, but it's a yarn store crawl, and they, every time you buy yarn from there, you get a discount, you get to put your name in a draw, and I found out this week that I won. I won a pair of alpaca socks in the draw, and so I have to go and pick them up sometime. So that's really exciting. And now for July, I am showing you some of the highlights of what I made, and one of them was this crop top. And I know it looks tiny, but it is super duper stretchy. So this crop top pattern is called My Little Secret Crop by Jessie Made Designs, and I used Sugar Bush Yarns Shanty to make it. And I really wanted to try making some sort of garment out of Sugar Bush Shanty because it's part wool, part linen, and I just thought that sounded really neat. So I made this, and it's fun. I've kind of worn them a little bit as pajamas, a little bit of workout wear, but linen sounds alright for working out a little bit, but I don't know about wool, so I was kind of warm and I don't know, nice for jammies. And so I have this blue ball of the same yarn to make another one, but now that it's getting to be fall and super chilly, I'm a lot less interested in crop tops than I was in our, historic heat wave in the beginning of July. So that was that. And then I finished up the Grumpy Bum shorts that I was making for my daughter, and they are adorable. And I have a picture of her wearing them. So cute. And she's worn them a lot this summer, and I had to rip out from when I last was knitting on them because I didn't understand the instructions properly, but I did finish them, and then I duplicate stitched the eyes on right here and the teeth I made to match her teeth. In July, even though she was over a year old, she only had 6 teeth. She had 4 on the top and 2 in the middle and the bottom, but she always went like this, and so I made them jutting out to the side like hers were. This pattern is called Monster Longies by Christine Jorgensen, and the pattern is actually for pants. And I just thought shorts would be so cute. You can put them over top of pants if you need to be warmer. And I had to fudge the pattern a bit because I was using different yarn. This is just acrylic yarn, probably from Michaels or Walmart. And I put a waistband in there. I have a video about this further on in the spring from when I started them. And yeah. Then also in July, it was the last month of getting things ready for my swap, and I sewed a project bag with Gryffindor themed licensed fabric from Fabricland. And yeah, I have enough fabric to make myself a bag if I want to in the future. Yeah. Oh, and for this bag, I actually bought a sewing pattern from Molko Studios, and this is the Sicily zipper pouch, and she had 3 sizes, and yeah, I actually really like that sewing pattern because she had pictures of the steps and the instructions were super easy to follow for a novice knitter, or a novice sewist as myself. Although maybe I shouldn't quite call myself a novice anymore, because I feel like I just finished last month my sewing magnum opus. I don't know if I will ever sew anything more awesome than this. Probably I will, but this will always be one of the top. A few years ago, I was watching one of the videos that the Cozy Up Knits girls make, and if you don't know them, Cozy Up Knits is 4 sisters from Grand Prairie, Alberta, which is near where I live, so I know them in person. And so it's fun to watch people talk about knitting patterns when they're knitting from yarn from my own store, and they're talking about places I know and people I know. But a few years ago, they were talking about their needle storage, and Sarah or Jamie had just this bag full of needles, or they would talk about how they dig around all their bags for the stuff they need. And they asked the question, how do you store your needles? Oh, and they had just had this new thing, maybe at Hippie Strings, or maybe they bought one, where it was this accordion pouch to store all of your circular needles in. And that was pretty cool. And I was thinking, boy, I could make something like that. I'm sure it's not too hard. And I'm sure it's not, but finding instructions online to make that sort of thing is very hard. I could not find any. But they got me thinking, how do you store your needles? And at the time, I stored my needles in a basket in the library and a basket in the sewing room or nursery, depending on what it is at the time. And I had a bunch of stuff in my room, on my dresser, and in my drawers of my nightstand table. I had stuff in project bags, I had stuff in the basement, everywhere. And so every time you need something, it's like, okay, when did I use it last? Did I put it away, or did I leave it somewhere? And so I had no storage organization, really. There was like 12 legitimate places something could be. And I thought, I should sew myself some sort of storage for this. My mom had just bought a neat thing off Amazon, and so I started looking for sewing needle storage patterns, and I was just dissatisfied for a long time with a lot of the options until I came across somebody's that they had made, which was this one, and similarly this one, and they kind of had tutorial-ish things. So I have spent on and off the last 2 years knitting myself some kind of needle storage case, and there were huge gaps between it. Well, I figured out I would be indecisive about what should this page look like, what should that have. I don't know how to do this, and so it would be short bursts of sewing with months and months in between. And I finished it in August. Oh, and for 2 years, my storage didn't change. And so for 2 years, I spent, every time I was looking for something, going, boy, this will be so much better when I finish my needle case. Oh, I can't wait until this case is done, and then I'll know where to find stuff. Yeah, for 2 years. So, here it is. This on the outside is vinyl, I think. Fake vinyl, real vinyl, I don't know. Oh. And I put on the zipper is my little thing I got when I donated blood for such and such a time. I haven't been able to donate blood for 7 years because I've been pregnant and had a kid, and I have Rh negative blood, which means I just get a shot after the baby's born, just so that my blood won't build antibodies to the baby's blood and then have a problem with future babies. So every time after I had a baby, I had this shot, and it's technically a blood transfusion. So I had to wait a year before I could donate blood. And I have never gone, until now, I have never gone a year from having a baby before I was pregnant again. So I haven't been able to donate blood for a long time. And that's something I'd like to change, actually. But I don't know when that'll happen. So, this needle case, though. Here we have my interchangeable needle tips, which are amazing. These are from Knit Picks, but there's lots of brands. If you haven't invested a lot of money in your knitted needles yet, you should seriously consider getting an interchangeable needle set, because anytime you use straight needles, you can use circular needles, which if you have kids or pets is really nice because it's so much harder to pull off your needles. But the nice thing with interchangeables is that sometimes you're going to need a longer or shorter length of cord and a larger or smaller size of needle. And so with this, instead of buying 10 different needle sizes in multiple lengths, you just have all of them and you can mix and match as you need per project. So saving up for one of those is not a bad idea. I have my ruler with gauge holes to tell what size your needles are. And then my cords for my interchangeable needles. And on this side I have extra tips and all these little things that you come with your interchangeable needles that you never really use. Here I have my fixed circular needles. It was really fun making these because I would put the needles on paper, especially for this sort of thing. I would put the needles on paper and then take my flexible measuring tape around and line on the paper how much space I needed for each one, and to account for that that it kind of bubbles when you put your needles in. You can't just have it totally flat. You need to account for that, otherwise they just won't fit. And double pointed needles. I have 4 sections for 2.25 millimeter needles because that is my favorite ones to use for socks. Here we have, this page took me the longest because I just didn't know what to put on here. I had my double pointed needles, my DPNs. I have these ones. Just what goes there? What would be the most useful and the most what would be the best thing to put on there that will be most accommodating for future needs of this needle case? And so I eventually, finally, this August, decided just to put some pockets in. And yeah, it's a little tricky, so it's not quite as nice as this one, which is alright. And then we have another vinyl pocket. I learned how to sew vinyl just for this project, and so I just keep every sort of thing in here. And then one of the times where I had taken a break from it, I saw this neat idea that someone had for sewing something like this, and they kept all their sewing feet, their sewing machine feet in them. And I thought, boy, that would be a great way to store stitch markers. And so I have my stitch markers in here, and it's just kind of neat. And then lastly, I have these pockets, again with vinyl. So it's nice to be able to see what's in it. And I think this is my favorite page. So I have my tools that I use frequently in there. And I was trying to decide for this page, maybe I wanted it to be another one of these, but I was just afraid of it being really bulky, and I wanted it to be, I don't know. When August came this year, and I was like, boy, I just want to get this done. Just finish it, put it together and have it. And so I did that. So yeah, I really, really love this thing. I learned so many techniques and so much planning and foresight and measuring and calculating, and every time I picked it up again I had to re-submerge myself into the pages. I had these pieces of paper that I had diagrammed what I would need and written out measurements and seam allowances and just all sorts of notes and things and pages of it to mimic, to have like this draft version that I could hold and look at and see how I liked. And something that I did when I started this August 2019, and I took all of my supplies that I could possibly want to put in it and kind of was like, how do I want to organize this? And I stacked them to find out how wide I wanted this to be. I put them in the way I organized them and put the fabric plopped on top, and I just measured it, and that was how wide it made it. And as I've been sewing and sewing, I was like, man, this is just too wide. It's just gonna be really weird. But it actually came out more or less perfect when stuff is in it. I had a tricky time with the edge, with this vinyl outside, because I didn't want to just have a raw edge right here. And I didn't want the raw edge on the inside because, you know, normally when you're sewing you want that double folded edge so that there's no raw seams, raw edges at all. But it simply was not possible for me to do. It's just way too bulky with it. So it does have that raw edge in there. And it's just like, that's okay, it's not perfect. And then I see on like my fancy professional project bag, she totally left a raw edge and it looks fine, and I never noticed until like yesterday. So another don't be too hard on yourself moment. And I'm so proud of this bag. I picked all these colors ages ago. Some of them were leftovers and some of them I bought specifically to match together and with what I had. And yeah, so Cozy Up Knits. This is how I store my needles now. Almost everything fits in there, and my straight needles that I have, I just have a case. And my straight needles have a straight needle case, and then I have a plastic case where I keep oversized straight needles and oversized DPNs that I rarely ever use. So I made a big list on my phone of all the places where I gathered around the house to find stuff when I was filling this up, when it was finished. So I will just put that there. Yeah. I am so proud of this. Oh, and something else that was really tricky that I figured out, well, I followed a ton of tutorials. Every new technique, tutorial. And one of the things that was tricky was how to make this zip up closed and lie flat without like tugging too hard or just not being able to. And then when I did that, I found out, oh, I still have raw edges right there in the middle where everyone can see them. So I had to tuck it right here, and so even I still have it at the top. But yeah, I'm just so happy with it. But you do have to be careful, because if you tip it upside down, needles fall out of it. And yeah. I will link in the show notes below to I made a project page on Ravelry where I was working on this, and on my project page it has a lot of things that how I did stuff or what I was thinking about it, and I have links to absolutely every tutorial or technique video on how to do this. Things like how to make, how to iron vinyl, or how to sew this or that, how to do the corners like this, like in the beginning. You can see the corner here, it's really rough. It was tricky to sew through so many layers, like folded edge and the vinyl and the zipper. Whereas by this point, I learned how to make like this really neat corner, which is very much how they bind quilts with quilting. So yeah. Also, in August, I received my parcel from the Harry Potter swap. So, my partner, what you're kind of supposed to get in these swaps, you can expect to get some yarn and something that's handmade for you. Probably some goodies to eat or whatever, depending on your questionnaire. And there's a budget to work with that doesn't include shipping, and that it's kind of up to your partner what you're going to get, and it's up to you what you're really going to put in there, what you're going to send, if you're going to go above budget, or you don't want to go too crazy. But yeah, so my partner made me 2 handmade things. One of them was this toque called the Norland hat. Yeah, just Norland, by Sarah Huntington Birch. And I've seen this hat before. My aunt made one for my mom, and it has matching mitts, and it's just very nice. And so she knit it to look kind of like the night sky, and it's sort of Ravenclaw colors. But even then, Ravenclaw colors kind of depend whether you go by the book or the movie. I keep getting interrupted. I got a phone call. My phone filled up and didn't video the last 20 minutes of my whole video. So, sorry for all these cuts and interruptions. So, I was saying in the book, Ravenclaw colors are blue and bronze, and in the movie, they're blue and silver. So it kind of depends where you're going by for what are Ravenclaw colors, but these ones are kind of Ravenclaw-esque and also nighttime-esque. So this is a beautiful toque, and now that it's getting to be more like fall and more chilly, I'm looking forward to wearing it. And the second thing that she made me, she clearly stalked through on Ravelry what I put in my favorites, because both of these patterns are in my favorites. And this one is called Arrow Cowl by Lisa Hands, and my partner knit this for me in Slytherin colors. And it's just so pretty and so soft. It looks like it would have been fun to knit actually, because it has lace and then some colorwork element to it. And it's kind of fun when a pattern has multiple elements in to keep you interested and not just the same thing the whole way through. So this is really nice, really pretty. The gray even has like green in it. So that's really nice too. The next thing she put in I'm going to show that she put in my swap is coffee that's made local to her. I just thought that was neat. That's what I'm drinking right now, and it's actually pretty good. And then she sent me this beautiful yarn from Supernatural Yarns. This is the Nymph Sock in the colorway Sugar Quills, which is another Harry Potter reference because they have a candy called Sugar Quills. And it's kind of Ravenclaw colors too. I don't know if this is self-striping yarn or just variegated, so it's kind of going to be a little surprise when I knit it up. She also included for me beads. Now, I wasn't sure at first if these were beads or jewelry, and my daughter came in and she thought they were necklaces, but they didn't stretch at all. And so she's trying to put them on her head, and I'm like, stop before we have a giant bead mess everywhere on my bed. So they are indeed for beading to put on my knitting, and I really enjoy doing that, so this will be a lot of fun. And she gave me this project bag by Stitched Below, and she included the card for it. And this project bag is Harry Potter themed. It's purple on the inside, and I've been keeping my Max socks inside there for the next one that I'm knitting. Oh, and I also keep on there, I got this spring from Faking Sanity. It says Espresso Patronum, and I just think that's so funny. And I got this sometime last year. And we have just some note cards with things for me, Harry Potter stickers. So, and she clearly bought her own Harry Potter stickers because she covered my box in some, and my kids were like, "Oh, what's this fun box for?" It's for me. And so that was such a big swap parcel for me. It was really nice. I was just sitting on my bed opening it up, and they were all wrapped in tissue paper, and I just, yeah, it felt like a present. It was fun. The last thing I have to show for August, oh no, sorry, I missed. Also, she included a needle minder for cross stitch, which is a little magnet that you put underneath the cloth, and when you put it on the other side, so it holds on, and then you can put your needle, you can set it on so that you don't lose it while you're doing whatever. And she sent it to me. I have a picture, and it says constant vigilance, and it has a picture of an eyeball because it's based off of the Harry Potter character Mad Eye Moody, and he says that, and he has a magical eyeball. And I just really like the saying constant vigilance, because it's just, you don't have to be a crackpot old coot to say that and think that, because it's so important to be intentional with your time and your money, and to be mindful of what you're doing, and like proactive and things. And so I have for a long time really liked the saying constant vigilance. And he's kind of this paranoid ex-cop character, but he's not wrong. So I just, yeah, constant vigilance. And so I put that on my questionnaire, that was a quote I liked from it. And so to actually find it on something is really kind of funny. So yeah, it's upstairs with my cross stitch stuff. And in August, Sock Knitters Anonymous had their annual Finish Up Your Whips August challenge month, and so the idea is to finish as many pair of socks as possible that were started prior to July 1st of that year. And so the person who finishes the most wins, and then next year you try and beat them and whatever. And they have this huge list of prizes that were donated or sponsored or whatever, and anybody who finishes a pair of socks in August gets to be put in the prize draw. And so I finished a pair and I won a prize. And normally, like, most of the prizes are a pattern, and sometimes there's a project bag or a skein of yarn. And the prize I won was donated by Helen Stewart, who designs such gorgeous socks. I love her designs. And she put in not just a sock pattern, she put in one of her Handmade Sock Society collections, which she puts these collections out each year. I think she has 4 of them, and they have 6 patterns in them. And so the prize was to pick one of these collections. And I spent like a day and a half, went back and forth, picking, looking through them to see which one I wanted, because they all are so beautiful. And so I picked the Handmade Sock Society 3 as my prize, and I'm really looking forward to making it, and I have already some ideas of what yarn I'm going to do with what pattern, and I'm looking forward to that. But the socks that I finished were these socks, and this pattern is called Thornfield by Rachel Coopy, and this is one of the few patterns that I have re-knit. This is my second time knitting this sock, and so I love it because it has such an intuitive, I really like this pattern because it is such like an intuitive, repetitive, geometric design, and I'm really drawn to those. I think they look beautiful and they're really enjoyable to knit. And so, yeah, it just goes on and on. And so I knit this before for a different friend who was graduating a few years ago. Here's a picture. And I loved it. I loved the design. I loved the yarn I was using, the color of it. I had a hard time giving these socks away. And to this day, they are still my lock screen photo on my phone because it's one of my absolute favorite pairs that I've knit. And, and my friend once, I was at her house and I had my phone and she's like, "Those are my socks." And inside I'm like, "Those are my socks." Because I made them and I loved them. So I did knit myself a second pair, and I started these in 2019 when I was on my tour trip to Israel, and I started them on the way to Calgary. And in Calgary, it was end of April, and we had a freak snowstorm, and it's the middle of the night, we were tired and stressed, and I was just freaking out inside. I'm like, we're only in Calgary, we might as well just drive home. We're not going to get to do our trip. It's just not going to work. Because Calgary is within driving distance. Like, it's not insane to drive that distance in a day. And so I was just like, our trip is ruined. We're not even going. We haven't gone anywhere. We might as well. We're probably just going to end up going home. Why couldn't we have been stranded in London? At least we'd have gone somewhere and we'd have to get back somehow. And you know, the part of my brain that wasn't losing my mind was just like, why don't we just pull out these socks and work on them while everyone else figures out what to do? So that's what I did. And I have a picture of me on the Sea of Galilee on a boat knitting on them. And it was so windy. Like, you can see in the picture, my hair is just sideways. And it's just been a lot of fun working on these in multiple countries. You know, it's just a lot of fun. So, yeah, I finished them. Took them camping and worked on them, and I finished them in August and won a prize for finishing them. So that was fun. Oh, and something I did by accident is I missed a repeat on the second sock. So the first sock is 1/2 inch longer than the second one, and I didn't realize that until I finished. These are cuffed down. I didn't realize that until I finished. And you know, it's on the leg, so it doesn't affect how the foot fits. It just affects how tall it is, and the leg is almost always high by my pant leg anyway, and so I was just like, I'm not redoing this. I just hate how often, you know, a mistake like that happens, and I have to go, oh, it's good enough. But, you know, maybe it's good to say good enough. So, yeah, that's those socks. Oh, and these are knit from Midnight Maker, True Sock 4-ply in the colorway Riotous. But I actually bought these. She changed her company name. I bought these before she was Midnight Maker. She was Haven Fiber Arts when I bought this yarn. She has since changed her name, and since then she has stopped dyeing yarn. So, yeah. One more thing to make these special. Are we still filming? Good. Okay. I'm a little paranoid now because my video cut off earlier and cut out. I was just talking to the window for minutes and minutes, and I didn't even know until I was done. Yeah. Okay, so what I'm working on right now. In the Sock Knitters Anonymous group in September, their monthly sock challenge is literary inspired patterns. So I'm knitting one called Impossibly Possible by Lisa K. Ross. And I have admired this pattern probably since it came out a few years ago, and it's been on my queue on Ravelry for a few years as well. And this is the pattern. For the longest time, I thought it was stranded knitting, and it's actually mosaic knitting. And what's the difference, you say? Well, with stranded knitting, you're working with 2 colors of yarn, and you're switching. you knit with one color and you switch and knit with the other one, and you have to watch out for your floats on the back, that they don't get too tight so that your sock will stretch, and you're using 2 colors at once. Whereas with mosaic knitting, you're only knitting with 1 color at a time, and when you get to the part where you want the second color to be in your knitting, instead of knitting it with the second color, you pick it up, and so you knit 2 rows with your main color, and then 2 rows with your contrast color, and 2 rows with your main color, and every time you get to the place where you want it to carry along, you pick it up, and what that does is it elongates your stitch. It pulls it, and so you can see up close, they're elongated and pulled across the 2 rows of the other color. So if you didn't slip stitches, you would only be knitting stripes. As you can see in the gusset area, it's just stripes. But every so often you pick that one and hang on to it for a little while, and it makes that design. And that sounds way more complicated than it actually is, but it's actually quite an easy knit. It's very simple. There's no worrying about your tension compared to just stranded knitting. Oh, I guess it's easier to tell right here. I knit 2 rows of purple, and anywhere that you see the gray crossing the purple was slipped from this heel, and so I didn't knit gray there. I just slipped it across and skipped it, and that is what makes this design. And so let's just take a look at this design. It is such a pretty pattern. It's toe up. Normally I like cuff down because it's easier for me to get the fit. I feel more confident in that. If I make the foot and it doesn't fit properly when it's cuffed down, you just have to reknit the toe. That's pretty simple. Whereas at this point, if it hadn't fit, I would have to redo this whole heel and possibly the gusset and make it longer, and that's just a lot more work to me. But I tried it on this one because there was just so much I didn't want to think about in reversing the pattern. I could have made this cuffed down, but it would just be more work. The pattern has all the instructions I need. And something else that I did with this sock is that I did a new heel. On the other socks that I've knit from the toe up, I've used a sock heel called Fish Lips Kiss Heel by Socks Therapist. And what it really is just a short row heel, but she's come up with this formula to figure out at what point you start the heel from toe up or cuff down. And the thing about this heel is that you don't need a gusset for it. And the gusset is this part, the triangular part on the side, on each side, and that allows your heel and instep to fit in the sock properly. Without that, it would be really tight to put on. It might not fit. So this was a new heel to me. It was a German short row heel, which I actually really like, German short rows. I have to look it up on YouTube how to do it every time. But it's efficient and it's nice, and it doesn't leave very gappy spots where you do it. And then it had a heel flap, and I was wondering, reading the head on the pattern, I was like, how do you do a heel flap on something and then not like pull it in? Normally on a regular cuff down sock, you get the heel flap and then you pick up stitches to connect it, and I've already done the gusset. I wouldn't be doing that, and so it turns out you just decrease 1 stitch on the heel and 1 stitch on the gusset, and you just kind of do that together, and so it ends up being this nice straight heel flappy sort of thing. And I've never really done a heel flap toe up before like that. I'm not sure how I like it. It does leave these stitches kind of elongated and almost like a bigger gap between the next stitch, whereas compared to a cuff down heel flap where you pick up stitches, I am a little persnickety about my stitches, and I pick them up very, very tidily. There's no large gaps there, or holes, which is a common heel flap thing, and it's something I'm kind of proud about, hopefully not to a fault. But here too, even this is like the gappiest of some of my heels, but you can see it's pretty flash. There's no real holes there. And this one with this sock is just a little bit like that, which isn't a problem. I enjoy learning the new technique, and perhaps there's ways to make it more tight, but I don't know. It was alright. So I finished that up last night and tried it on, and it fits, and so I'm ready to do the leg. And I'm knitting this out of one of the yarns is one that I got from Faking Sanity in Dawson Creek. It is Mineville Wool Project. This is merino nylon 2-ply sock, and it's 450 meters for $25. That's a really, really good price for this. And that's why I got it, because I was looking for a yarn to make this pattern, and a gray yarn to make this pattern, and then also to be a contrast pattern for contrast color for a pattern I want to do called Eisern by General Hogbuffer. And this yarn is actually intentionally discount yarn made by the people who make fleece artist. This is kind of a side project of theirs. And so that is local, not local, it's Canadian made, I think, ish. Fleece artist is Canadian, and this is Canadian, so that's kind of fun. And then the color contrast that I'm using is Estelle Yarns Sock Twins. So I have two of these, and I made a mistake though in figuring out what yarn I would want for this, is that I made the mistake, each of these is 200 meters, so that you can make 2 matching socks. But to make one sock you need 200 meters. This whole thing is enough for one sock. But with a pattern like this, you only need half as much of each color. So half of the main yarn, half of the contrast color. Which means that for this pattern, this is enough for the whole pattern. So by the time I finish this sock, I will have used up half of this ball. So maybe gotten to the pink. Instead of, like, what I thought would happen is I would use the whole ball up on one sock, and now I'm probably going to, I have a lot of options of what I could do, and I'm not particularly excited about any of them. The easiest, simplest option is simply knit the sock, and then so the color will start purple and go to pink on this sock, and then it will start pink and go to yellow on the second sock. The plus side of knitting that is that I have this one where I can make another pair of gradient socks somehow with some pattern if I use another yarn with this. And, you know, that's a bonus. Something else I could do is I could make knee socks and use up this whole ball on one pair of socks. And that's totally an option. It's a scary option because to make knee socks you have to do a lot of calculations to accommodate the calf to make it bigger. And I don't know if I really want to do that. It sounds like a lot of work, but just how awesome would those socks be, right? They would be sick. They'd be so cool. It's a good question, would I have enough of this to do that or not, to make 2 knee-high socks? I probably wouldn't have enough left to be the contrast color in that other pattern I want to do. But maybe I would, I don't know. And then the third option I have is I can rip this out all the way to here, and then after each part cut my yarn and like start again, cut my yarn at purple and pull it out, maybe make a second ball until it gets to the next color that I want, and then start from there. And just do that all the way up so that I have a stripe: purple, purplish pink, pink, pinkish yellow, yellow, yellowish pinky orange, like, or whatever, like have a bit of each color all the way up, which is a lot of work, and then I could make a matching sock that way. And you know, honestly, that isn't such a bad idea. The only reason I don't like that idea is because then I have to rip out all this stuff that I've done. And I've already had to rip out on this sock because I got to about here and realized, oh, I should have started the gusset. And so I had to pull it back and then do the gusset. And so those are 3 options. And to just make the socks totally not match, but clearly go together, or make giant knee socks, or rip back and make them very matchy-matchy, but with lots of ends and cutting the yarn and starting a new spot. So, I don't know what to do. What would you do? Feel free to comment. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that, but anyway, it's actually been a really nice, enjoyable pattern. I have been enjoying this a lot to knit. Yeah. Just wish I'd paid more attention to my yarn choice at the beginning, but oh well. So that's all that I have. I want to say thank you for watching, and a big thank you to my husband for pushing me to make this video and keep going. There will be more. But thank you and bye for now.